welcome back to the garden. If you're new here, my name is Angela. I'm located in Central Mississippi, Zone 8B, and welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I really do appreciate all the support from everyone. Um, and today we're actually going to talk about companion planting. Companion planting is something that I'm really getting into this year. I have companion planted before, but this year I'm really going all in with it just because I want to have a little bit more of a natural and organic feel to my garden. I don't want to spray any pesticides or anything like that. I just want to do that 100% organic uh, feel throughout my garden. So as of yet, I haven't sprayed any type of pesticides, and I think what I'm doing so far is really working for me. And as the season goes on, I will give you updates on how it continues to work. And if what I'm doing working works for me, then it may work for you. Who knows until you try. But specifically today, we're actually going to talk about what I'm doing, the companion planting that I'm doing in my garden, and why I'm doing it in my garden, and what the companion plants do for my garden. So the very first thing that I'm going to talk about is the plants that I'm using for companion planting. I have gone really, really heavy on planting out onions, bunching onions, bulbing onions, sweet onions, all of those. I have lined almost every single bed with the exception of maybe two or three, well, yeah, maybe two or three that does not have some type of onion or garlic in it. I've also gone really heavy with garlic planting. Another thing that I've gone heavy with is my basil. I don't really enjoy basil. I don't like basil, but I do have family and friends and neighbors and stuff that really do like basil. So whatever basil I harvest, I will end up giving to them, or my chickens will end up eating it. So whatever I do pull out of my garden, it does get used in some capacity. So I'm not worried about that. But I did go really heavy on the planting of basil. With the basil, I did Genovese basil, cinnamon basil, and lemon basil. And there is a reason why I chose those three, which I'll get into in a few minutes. Another thing that I'm doing heavy planting of is marigolds. I'm using the normal standard size marigolds as well as dwarf varieties of marigolds. And I actually have my dwarf varieties right here that I will be planting out this afternoon. And I have 12, about 24 sitting here that will be going throughout my garden. And I already have probably about 20 marigold plants already out there, if not more. Another thing that I went pretty heavy, not fairly heavy, especially in my squash area. Another thing I went heavy on is borage. Borage does grow really well here. It flowers pretty quickly because we get so hot, and as you can tell, today's a really bright day. We're at about 82, 83 degrees right now. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius, but that is in Fahrenheit. I think it's like 30 something in Celsius, maybe. But we're at about 82, 83 degrees right now, and borage really survives in the heat. Another thing that I have is marigolds. I have carrots. Carrots are really good companion plants for tomatoes. They help repel against I think it's a fly. Hold on, I'm looking at my little list here. Yeah, it's a certain fly that the carrots help repel against, but it's not listed on here on my list. I didn't write it down. I remember it helps with a fly, but I don't remember which one. But that's another thing that I'm using. I have carrots. I'm also doing companion planting as far as oh my goodness, the pollen is in the air right now around me, and allergies are kicking up. Another companion plant that I am doing is beans, both bush beans and pole beans. Those beans I'm actually using in my potato beds. So my potato bed that I have over here on this back side, on the back area back there, It is a raised bed of potatoes, but there is a trellis that connects over to that bed. So I have pole beans that are planted along the trellis that will be coming up. They should be already up. If not, they'll be coming up in the next day or so because I did plant them out a couple of days ago. And then another thing that I'm going to be using for companion planting is radishes, which radishes really surprised me after I did a little bit of research on them. The things that radishes repel, they repel cucumber beetles. They also help with leaf miners. They help with what else did they help with? Leaf miners, cucumber beetles, the Japanese beetles, different things like that. That the radishes really help with, which I suffer with cucumber beetles really, really bad here, especially as the weather starts warming up a good bit more. They'll start coming out, and my cucumbers just get hit every year. So I try to plant early and plant lots of varieties so that I know I can get a harvest. But this year I'm going to do the companion planting with radishes around my cucumbers to see if that helps. And again, that is also along with the um, carrots and basil and everything else that's planted out. Another companion plant I'm going to be using is sunflowers. I do know that sunflowers are a really big attractant for squash bugs. Squash bugs are another thing that I really suffer with here. And every year I try to plant out sunflowers every year to attract those squash bugs because last year I made the mistake and did not plant out any sunflowers, and my almost all of my tomato plants were just covered in squash bugs. My tomatillo plants were covered in squash bugs, and I was forever battling with squash bugs to get them out of my garden. And them little suckers are nearly impossible to kill unless you sit there and squish it, each and every one of them. And it's just, ugh. It was a battle last year. Needless to say, it was a battle. All right. So, as far as the reasons why I am using those specific companion plants, basil is really great because what it does, the stronger smelling basils can confuse the bad insects that come to your garden, like the moths that produce the tomato hornworm. That's one of the reasons I chose the cinnamon basil, the lemon basil, and the Genovese basils. They have that very strong, potent smell to them, and that can kind of help drown out the smell of the tomato plants for those particular bugs. So also, something else that I learned is that I have some garlic planted near my tomatoes. I was not aware of this, but garlic does repel spider mites. I wished I would have known that about 2 years ago because I had a couple of eggplants that I had planted in my garden, and spider mites just kind of came through and took them out. And I would spray them with BT. I would spray them with neem oil and stuff like that, and not BT, I'm sorry, but neem oil. I'd spray them with the neem oil, and I was having to spray every couple of days because they were just so bad in my garden. But again, that's why I'm planting out the basil. And basil, I'm not just using for my tomatoes. I also have a lot of basil planted throughout my squash bed. I'm going to have them planted throughout my pepper bed that I have sitting right here behind me. I actually have a couple right here that I'm going to be planting out in this bed this afternoon. So those will go throughout this bed. Um, and then where else do I have them planted? I have by my pumpkins, by my melons. I have some that are planted that are going to be planted over here by my roselle or my Jamaican sorrel plants. I'm going to plant companion plants over there as well. Another plant that I have over here with my Jamaican sorrel, and that's also going to be included in my um, pepper bed, is bush beans. So I have the pole beans back there for the potatoes, and then I also have pole beans planted back here with my squash because I have a trellis that comes over to one of the squash beds. So those are going to be back there, and pole beans are really good for uh, releasing nitrogen back into the soil. But in order for that to work for you, is when it's time for the pole beans or the bush beans to die back, you really need to cut the plant off at the soil level and leave those roots inside of the ground so that they can break down to release that nitrogen back into the soil. My roselle or the Jamaican sorrel really benefits from nitrogen as well as the pepper plants do, as and also the squash plants. So that's why I really focused on that type of companion planting with those, because they do benefit from that nitrogen releasing back into the soil. For this year, I'm not really worried about that nitrogen because they are getting every 2 to 3 weeks. I am coming out and fertilizing everything, and all of these beds are now filled with fresh compost soil that's in them. I redid my whole garden this year, and so all beds have new compost or composted and refreshed soil that's in them. So this year I'm not too worried about that, but the beans are for the long run, because in the gardening game sometimes you got to play the long game with it. So that's what I'm doing also with this companion planting. Not only am I focusing on what can help me right now, but I'm focusing on what can help me in that long run. With marigolds, that's another long-term beneficial plant. It not only does it attract in great beneficial pollinators, but it also helps to repel root knot nematodes. So you have the root knot nematodes that it repels. It repels Japanese beetles. It can also help with what was it? The y'all, in the paper that I'm looking at, the list that I have here, I'm going to actually attach it to y'all. So if you want to download and print a copy of it, you definitely can. But the marigolds repel against the Japanese beetle, root knot nematodes, and then they also help with where did it go? Oh, in some capacity, they do help against the red spider mites. So that's another thing. Oh, and one more thing on the beans. The beans do help protect potato plants against the Colorado potato beetle. I did not know that. And this list I have right here, like I said, I'm going to add it to the video for you to print out for in PDF. If you want to print it out, you can definitely do that. I really enjoyed reading over this list, and I've actually added some to it. So what I've added to it, I will have also in a PDF attached. So so that's what your marigolds cover. I've already covered the radishes. Like I said, the radishes cover the cucumber beetles. They help with a variety of different pests. So they help repel certain things. They repel leaf miners, the radish, the cucumber beetles, the Japanese beetles. That's just another thing that assists with the Japanese beetles, because those big Japanese beetles that we have here, I suffer greatly with them too. They mostly come out in the afternoons and at nights, and they're a real pain in the butt to get rid of too, honestly. So, but that's just another thing that I suffer with. Another thing that I have planted out. Let's see, we went over the radishes, we went over the marigolds, we went over the basil, we've gone over the beans. The sunflowers, the reason I'm doing the sunflowers again, squash bugs. Not only that, but they do attract in bees. So I do find every year that I plant sunflowers in my garden, I do get more bee activity. I also have, well, I also gone a little more flower heavy this year because I really wanted to attract all those good bugs in. I did a bunch of bachelor's buttons. I've done a bunch of um, calendula, sweet alyssum, sunflowers, gomphrena, safflowers. I've done a bunch of different flowers. Zinnias. I have 2 trays of zinnias right now that I have to plant out, get planted out today. So I've really focused and upped my flower game this year, and I plan to have flowers just planted throughout, not just because of the beauty of the flowers, but because they help attract those bugs. And then on the uh, bachelor's buttons, they're really great for attracting in ladybugs. I I'm not really companion planting too much with bachelor's buttons, but I do the green stalk that's back here in this backside. That top level is filled with bachelor's buttons, and since I planted it out and it started getting hot, it has been covered in ladybugs. So if you have an issue with aphids or something like that, ladybugs are definitely what you want to attract to your garden. So I would highly suggest the aphids. Plant you some bachelor buttons with it. They do get pretty tall if they're really happy, because the ones that I have back here in this thing, they're actually going out of the top of that trellis that's right there. So I'm having to be really careful whenever I spin it around to get sun on all the even sides. But the ladybugs are just loving it. And I'm really happy that I did that, because I did start to have an issue with some aphids on my pepper plants that are right up here in this bed. And we planted all these pepper plants out Sunday, and I was going out to the greenhouse every morning and squishing and kind of taking the aphids off every morning until this past Sunday. And when we planted them out Sunday, I came out Monday morning to check on them just to make sure that they were still good and they were adapting good and nobody was in shock. And the first thing I seen was some ladybugs on my pepper plants, and they were going away at those aphids. So it's safe to say right now I don't have any more issues with aphids on my pepper plants. So I'm really, really happy for that. Um, let's see here, and on my pepper, not my pepper, my tomato beds, the companion plants that I really went heavy with are the carrots. I went heavy with the bunching onions, the basil, and nasturtium in those beds. The squash beds, I went heavy with borage, nasturtium, bulbing onions, and bean plants. The potato bed, I went very heavy on the bean plants that I have planted in there. And then I also have some marigolds that are planted in there. My uh, cucumber beds, I'm going heavy on planting radishes. I have sunflowers, and I have a few carrots planted in a couple of them. And then I also have some marigolds that are planted around the cucumber plants. The melons that I have planted out, I went real heavy with uh, marigolds, borage, and I have a few sunflowers. So I just kind of have sunflowers spread throughout everywhere, because I really want to do everything I can to stop those squash bugs this year. There is one other thing that I have listed on here that is a great companion plant. That is nasturtiums. However, you're not going to find any nasturtiums in my videos. You're not going to find me planting out any nasturtiums. The only time that I can really get away with planting nasturtiums or starting them here in my area that I've really found is like in October to beginning of February, when it's cooler. In my area or in my backyard, or maybe it's just me, I'm not going to lie. Maybe it's just me growing them, they tend to die very, very quickly, because the weather here is unpredictable, and in we can hit all seasons in 24 hours. Y'all, there's a squash bug literally on the ground right near here, but I haven't seen. There's a squash bug right there on the ground on the grass outside of my garden, but I have not seen one inside my garden area. So that I'm really happy about. But anyway, so but back to nasturtium. Sorry about that. I had what you a squirrel moment, I guess you could say. But anyway, nasturtiums. I do not really do a whole lot of planting with nasturtiums. I've tried for several years in a row, and I could just never get anywhere with them. By the time I planted them out, or they were big enough to plant out in my garden, or they had already came up from seed, a freeze would come, or a frost would come and just wipe them out. And then by the time I would get them planted for the springtime, it would get so hot that they were just struggling. So I'd end up having to pull them anyway. So the nasturtiums, I don't even try with, which let let me say, nasturtiums are a great insect uh, attractant for the beneficial pollinators. They're also really great for beneficial insects in your garden. They are an absolutely great companion plant. They just don't work for me because I can't get them to grow. If you can get them to grow, by all means, please plant them. Please plant them. You will have great success at getting them planted. With me, like I said, my thing is I went heavy on all the other companion plants. My basil, the marigolds, the onions. I've gone kind of heavy on the garlic, and I'm really happy with the way things are working out so far with my companion planting. On my garden tour videos, you can kind of see a little more of how I have everything planted, because a lot of my beds are about 3 foot wide and they range anywhere from 6 foot to 10 foot long, and then 3 foot wide, and then I have some beds that are 8 foot by 2 foot wide, and I try to take advantage of every space that I have inside of those beds. And it's the same thing with these fabric pots, like these fabric pots with the pepper plants up here. A lot of these dwarf marigolds will go in the pot with those, even though they're not really in danger of like the root knot nematode. They will help against the other stuff that comes. So, and then, oh, another thing I just thought about, vine borers. I did not know this, but radishes not only help with cucumber beetles, but they're supposedly going to help with vine borers as well. I was not aware of this, but I did a little bit of research, and according to my notes and what has been listed on this form that I found, it says that they do help against vine borer. So I'm going to plant out radishes with my squash plants as well. And I'm just going to see how it works. Like, we're in this, we're going to do this together. We're going to go through this garden season and we're going to see how this companion planting works. We're going to see what works best. We're going to see if it's maybe a combination of everything that's going to really just make my garden stand out and be like, bam, here I am. Who knows? But we're going to definitely find out together this year, and I'm going to let you know as the season goes on. We're going to have a couple of companion planting videos or updates come out, and like I said, we're going to do this together. We're going to see what happens. So I really suggest for you to get out there and really research and look into the companion planting. Do what's best for your garden. I can only give you the experiences of my garden. You have to do what's best in your garden, because every backyard or every little area is not the same. Nobody's garden is going to grow the same. Every area has its own little microclimates, because there's been times to where I have a friend that's up the street that they garden. They could possibly get a frost, and I won't have a frost here. Or I've had frost right here in the center part of my yard, but on a garden part that I had on the back side of this shed over here, a frost never touched it. So, and it was just over the past several years, that's what I found. It's like I have little microclimates throughout my backyard, but now I have everything kind of centered right here into this whole area right here behind me. And so I know what the microclimate is right here. So I know what grows really well. So now it's time for me to get with the companion planting to get that organic feel throughout my garden that I want. And so far, I can say, I can report that I have been pleasantly surprised, because I can tell you that as of right now, I don't have very many pests that I have found throughout my garden. I had the aphids that the ladybugs took care of. I have had slugs, but I have some beer traps that I'll be putting out in my garden to help with the slugs, because I don't do slugs. And then I've seen spiders throughout my garden that are taking care of the stuff that they need to take care of. I have lizards that are coming out here. There's frogs, and all the animals are welcome. If they're coming to take care of a pest for me, they are more than welcome to come and take care of those pests for me. My broccoli that I have planted right back here, we're in 80 something degree weather, and I have not seen very many of the moths that attack the brassica plants. And I'm very thankful for that. And I think that that does have some to do with the companion planting that I'm doing. Because in this broccoli bed that's right up through here, this is also going to be my squash bed. But in this broccoli bed right now, there is marigolds. There's borage planted in there. There's the squash plants that are planted in there. There's beans that are planted in there. And then there's also the row of the onions that are planted on the front side. So I really do think that that is what is contributing to me having happy, healthy broccoli plants right here. And then it's also the same on this back wooden bed that I have way back over here. There's some cabbages that are in there that are surrounded by onions, and they have um, sunflowers that are planted in that bed with them, and they're doing exceptionally well. There's very little pest damage that's done to them. Of course, there was some damage that was done from the freeze that we had overnight a few weeks ago, but as of right now, that's all the damage that they have. There's very few holes, and those holes are more or less from uh, uh, slugs than anything else. And I've been coming out here and trying to get rid of the slugs until I can put the beer cups out. And then another thing that I have not seen is those roly polies. I had a horrible issue with the little roly polies last year. I don't know if that was because the wood that was rotting in my beds, and maybe me switching over from the wooden beds to the metal beds has helped. But I still do have two wooden beds, and I'm using the same wood that I had from my in-ground beds from last year, or my raised beds that were on top of the ground from last year. I'm using the same wood, and I have not found any of those roly-poly or the peel bugs in those beds for this year, and they are packed out with companion plants. One of them is a full-blown flower bed that has chicory and calendula and sunflowers and alyssum and all that stuff in it. And the other bed has my cabbage with onions and sunflowers in it. And again, no issues at all. So I really, really highly recommend for you to do your research, to really consider trying a little more organic approach to gardening, and to get into and to look into the companion planting side of gardening. That way, not only are you not putting those pesticides that you're putting on your garden into your body, that kind of cuts all that out, but that helps you with that organic side because you know what's being put on your plants. Um, so yeah, I think that's about it for today. I could go on and on and on about companion planting, and I can go through my whole garden and show you every little thing that's out here. But those are my main companion plants of what I'm doing this year. And like I said, as I have garden tours that come out, we'll also give quick updates of how the companion planting is going for me over the season. And again, as of right now, I am pleasantly surprised and very happy with the way things are going. I'm going to get the rest of these dwarf marigolds and basils out today, and then we're just going to take it from there. And if you like the content, uh, you learned something, I guess you could say. If you learned something new, or if you learned something, or if you have any advice that you'd like to give, or anything like that, feel free to give me a comment below. Reach out, interact in the comment section with me. I really appreciate any advice or anything like that that you give. And hey, it may be something that I don't know that I'm willing to try it. So if you like the content, like I said, give it a thumbs up, share, like the thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And until we have the next video, or until I see y'all again, y'all have a good one and happy gardening.